On this episode of Rabbit Hole Sessions, I'm joined by pianist and composer Greg Murphy, Chicago native who has been a force with the New York jazz scene since the 1980s. Best known for his 22-year collaboration with the legendary Rashied Ali, Greg's career spans decades and continents, including performances with giants like Wynton Marsalis, Ornette Coleman, and Christian McBride. From his early days in Chicago to recording with Carlos Santana in France and scoring an Oscar-nominated documentary, Greg brings a deep, multidimensional voice to the music. And we are live with Greg Murphy. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me on, Abe.
Yeah, my pleasure. We were just talking before we started recording about the time I saw you play 15 years ago in a duo situation in New Brunswick, New Jersey, and I asked you if you were going to remember it. So and you did. So I'm very happy about that.
Definitely remember that. Yeah, with G Sunny.
And that must have been hard to play duo piano and drums.
It depends. So in the past I've had trouble playing duo with a bass player in the past because it depends on the timing and the vibe and stuff like that. But recently, I play a duo with my drummer, who plays bass. He comes and volunteers at the Inglewood Hospital where I play at, and he's got such good timing. Even though he's not a phenomenal bass player, his timing makes it easy to do duos. So yeah, so duo with a drummer is easy rhythmically, right? But there's something missing. So yeah, duos are challenging for me. Yeah.
So your preference is duo with drums and duo with bass, is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
well, duo with a bass player that I'm familiar with that has a good time
Yeah,
is my preference. And I also like duos with horn players too.
sure. Well, it just goes to to show you that you were open minded at the time to go play at that lounge, whatever the name of it was, with a drummer and just play. And it's those opportunities that when you're younger, they are very exciting, and you treat it like it's the most important gig in the world. Now, like let's fast forward. That was a duo with drums at that restaurant. Let's fast forward now. Are you still open to doing those types of gigs? Like if he called you to do the same thing again, like, or you kind of want to be more selective with your time now that it's a little, it's not 2010 anymore.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm open to do a gig with anybody, depending on the situation and availability and a lot of logistics and all that stuff. Bringing keyboards and all that stuff plays a role. Uh, I think I did a duo with Rashied Ali once before. I know we did a lot of trio gigs and um, stuff with different people, with both as sidemen and when we were both sidemen doing trio gigs and doing. I think we did a duo gig once before too, but it might have been my gig. But yeah, but mostly quartet, quintet gigs with Rashied.
Yeah. But you're still open to doing those types of gigs though. It's.
Yeah, yeah, a gig is a gig. Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, yeah, a gig is a gig. Yeah, solo is cool too, and I do a lot of that. And different solo gigs are different. Are different. Depending on where it's at and what the place wants.
Sure.
What the playing the crowd and all that stuff.
And as far as Rashid Ali goes, I'm sure you hear countless questions about what that was like, and I'm sure you're more than happy to talk about it. But let's go back to the beginning, meeting him, if that's okay. Like if you could
Yeah,
just
yeah. I actually met him in Chicago. My friend Tyler Mitchell introduced me to him. We were both hanging out.
bass player.
Yeah, Tyler, the bass player. We went to high school together. He was a grade ahead of me. And we went to Kenwood High School in Chicago, which became Kenwood Academy. And there's a place called Hyde Park. It was called Harper Square, I think, or I forget. I forget where exactly, but but I remember distinctly because, and I heard later that Rashid was in town, was in Chicago. I was like in my teens, or I was either 19 or 20, right? So it was a long time ago. And I think, and I remember distinctly, Rashid had this leather multicolor suit, right? It was like a top and a bottom. It was like patches, like red, green, brown, really cool. And he was in town playing with Sun Ra. I heard that, later. But that's when I first met Rashid. And then later, when I moved to New York in 1987, maybe so eight, 8 or 7 or 8 years later, Tyler took me to Rashid's house, and I was subletting. I had just moved in town. I just moved to New York, and I was subletting in Morningside Heights, and the lady the lady did. So I had just switched from one place to another, right? The sublet I had, I moved to another apartment in the same building, but the lady thought we had stole some stuff. I had a lot of musicians over there. We were kind of crazy, right? But she thought, and we didn't steal anything, but she thought we had stole some stuff from her. She later found it, but she didn't want to return my $500 deposit, right? And this is, it was a lot of money for me back then. Still a lot of money. But so she didn't want to. So went to Rashied's house. I had that on my mind, right? I said, this lady does not want to give me my money back. What am I going to do? So the first time I'm playing with Rashied, I'm just trying. He didn't have his basement set up, which he had, and he did a lot of recordings there. But we were playing on his. He had an upright piano. I was just trying to keep up with him on drums, volume wise. So I was hitting the piano hard. So I broke like at least five of his keys, maybe six or seven of his keys, right? And that's the first time I met Rashied. And I really think and later, I really think he liked me because of that. I think it's probably what I was playing, maybe, but I never understood. Tyler would say, like a couple months later, man, Rashied really likes you, man. I don't know what it. He said, you got a gig for life. And I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? But it kind of, it kind of turned out that way.
Well, aside from the fact that he liked you musically, was there sort of a just comfort? And when I say comfort, like it just feels natural to talk to them. You don't have to put a wall up, and you see the world similarly once you get down to the nitty gritty. Was it that sort of thing too?
Well, I mean, we became friends, and he was like probably my best friend toward the end. And but it took a long, it took me to get my act together before we actually became best friends. And he trusted me to help him with like doing tours and stuff like that, and helping with the booking agents and stuff like that. But we hung out together, but I mean, but I guess he liked me because of something rhythmic, maybe, I guess. I mean, for me, it was just comfortable playing with him. He did a lot of different stuff, and we didn't just play free. We played a lot of straight ahead stuff, and he could swing with the best of them. He was amazing. And I remember like when we toured, right? We did a little tour, and then the very first time I played with him, then I came back to New York and started playing with some really good local drummers. And I was looking at, and I think me and Tyler were on the same gig. We were like, man, it's and he was like, yeah, it's a big drop in intensity after playing with Rashied and then playing with somebody else. So Rashied was on fire.
So you were his pianist for in the band for 22 years. And
different bands, but on and off. I had gotten fired like maybe at least once or twice in that time period.
what do you mean when you say fired? Like he was like, "Hey, I'm going to try someone new," or there like an argument? Like what does that mean?
Middle of a recording session, I didn't. I was like 2 or 3 hours late for the
Oh,
second of the recording session, and he said, yeah, sorry, you're fired. And that was it. It was a lot of stuff involved with that, but it ended up, so he got instead of getting another piano player for the second half of the date, he got another bass player. But when the record came out, I was on like 90% of the record.
so he was mad about that, obviously. But then, how did you get back in his good graces?
I became, pretty messed up and unreliable. And yeah, so I was messed up in the game, doing a lot of drugs and stuff like that.
Oh,
You know,
drugs.
yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, that's why I overslept, probably because I was hanging out too much, probably partying too much. And then I was, yeah, story of my life, But after that, eventually I got clean, and I've been clean for like 23 years, right? Going on 24. So when I did, get my act together, it's a one day at a time thing, right? When I did get my act together, I said, "Hey, I'm ready. I'm ready to come back in the band." This is like 2004, 2003, and he was like, I'm not really hearing piano right now. So he was, but in 2005, I got back with him. I think it took me, yeah, I might have had maybe 3 years off with him, So it wasn't 22 years consistently, but from the beginning to the end was 22 years. So yeah. So anyway,
Well,
yeah,
I mean, well, first of all, congratulations on that. That's decades of sobriety, and that's amazing to hear. And I know, but there were probably more drugs at the time it was more prevalent, right?
Um, I guess, yeah, I guess. I mean, it was definitely, yeah. I mean, it was definitely prevalent in my world. You know, some people it wasn't even a part of their lives. So it depends on what you're doing and who you were hanging out with. But yeah, but it got in the way, and but you know, sometimes you know things happen, and you kind of like are okay with it. You run with, you know, like when I was in high school, right? I was smoking a lot of weed and stuff like that. And when I wasn't smoking weed I was getting like D's and C's when I was a freshman and sophomore. And then as a junior and senior, I started smoking weed, right? And then I was starting to get A's and B's, right? So I thought the weed was helping me. And then I kind of ran with that for a
I don't
while.
know what happened, but at least I don't know if this was like this for you, but like in middle school, like there was no marijuana, whatever, whatsoever. Like no one talked about it. And then as soon as I got to high school, like within a week, everyone was talking about marijuana. Did that happen to you, or were people doing it in middle school too?
Yeah, no, I didn't. When I was a kid, I didn't experience it. I didn't even hear about it in middle school. Yeah, I didn't hear about it until
Something
I
about
got.
going to high school is when the drugs come into the picture.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah. So that's yeah, it's always a challenge to. But yeah, it is what it is. You know, stuff
Yeah.
happens.
Well, I appreciate your being
What I was going
honest.
to say was what I was going to say was Rashied had told me, you know, even when I was getting high a lot around him, he would always be like, just be careful, just be careful. You know, I'd have, you know, they have sessions at my house and find some stuff in the ashtray or whatever. He's like, just be careful. And he said, you know what, you still sound good whether you're. And he said whether you were high or not high, you still sound good. And I was like, and I kind of ran with that too. I was like, okay, if I can play, you know, because my attraction when I was living in New Orleans, you know, I wasn't getting high. I studied with Ellis Marsalis in New Orleans in 1985 before I, you know, moved to New York. And, you know, I wasn't I wasn't a full blown active drug user, but, you know, I was attracted to Charlie Parker and John Coltrane. I heard stories about Bird and I thought, well, maybe you needed, you know, basically I said it didn't hurt Bird's playing. That was my mentality, right? Using heroin didn't, so it's not going to hurt me. Right? But obviously we all know the stories that Charlie Parker totally said, don't do this stuff. You know, I'm doing it. Don't do it. You know, he's read Rodney stories of Charlie Parker advising him not to get high. This is not going to make you sound any better.
Yeah. And now the opioid epidemic, which I mean, like if I can't like my whole neighborhood that I grow up with, like so many of my friends that I grew up with like are no longer here because of it, you know, at least in where it was a big thing in central Jersey, like even in the upper middle class suburbs, it was always there, you know.
It's you know it's so many people have not made it, you know, and I'm just one of the lucky ones, you know.
Yeah.
I thank God, I thank my higher power that I somehow didn't get didn't die. You
Yeah.
know?
When I was in high school, I got high, smoked some weed, and I picked up the guitar and I couldn't feel my hands. I like freaked out. So that was the end of like playing music and experimenting with weed for me. Just because
Oh, you stop playing music and smoke more weed, or stop or smoke a
no,
little
no,
bit?
no, no. I stopped. I couldn't do it and play music because I was so scared I couldn't feel my hands. So that's why I freaked out about it. But you know, it's like it's interesting too because listen, everyone can do whatever they want to do. What it's not my business. People want to smoke weed, not smoke weed, you know, when they play. But like I've been the sober one, and a lot of the other and everyone else has been high. And I kind of feel like I'm operating from a different perspective when it's like that.
Yeah,
And
and
it's not a
for
good
some,
one, to be honest with you.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's different for some people because some people don't become full blown addicts. They can kind of casually smoke weed or do whatever they do, have a drink or something like that, and
Sure.
they're totally fine. And but for some people like me, I went overboard, you know. And I mean, and there was a mentality back in the day too with heroin. My friend, you know, Mickey Bass, bass player, who used to say, you know, to be in a band, you had to be a heroin addict. They wouldn't trust certain bands if you were straight. They wouldn't trust you.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. There were certain bands and that was real. You know, it wasn't everybody, but it was like you know if the band leader and his two top guys were getting high, you know, because people had gotten, people got snitched on, right? And did jail time. Jimmy Heath, right? He did like 5 years for some weed, Elvin Jones got, and I don't know if it was musicians snitching, but it was it wasn't it was everybody didn't trust everybody. So it's like it's so I don't know, but it
So
was.
would there be, so if there used to be I mean, we don't have to talk about drugs the whole time. I mean, this is just where the conversations is naturally going. But you're telling me that there were bands where predominantly the members, most of them were using drugs, and if you were sober, you had to kind of hide it in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, this is secondhand information, so not firsthand information, but at least you had to be. It's like if you're an undercover cop, right? It's like on TV, right? You gotta sniff some drugs in order to stay undercover, right?
Right.
So I guess musicians had to keep their cover too, so in a certain extent. But anyway, it gets to the point where my heroes, right? John Coltrane, right? There were stories of him, but the biggest revelation for me is like when he got clean, right? And how his music just took off, and the thing, hearing him play the magic, I think you touched on this with an interview with Spike Wilner, talked about the fact that music isn't for money, it's for spiritual healing, right? So the magic that I heard with Coltrane playing impressions on a couple recordings, I'm like, man, it just lifted me, right? Because it
So all
was.
right, I'm going to stop you for 1 second. Which one? Which did you? Which one? Afro Blue Impressions, that record, Live at the Vanguard. Which one? Like, do you remember? Because I
No,
love it.
no, I think it was with Roy Haynes on drums. Actually, it was when Roy was subbing when Elvin was probably locked up, right? So, yeah, I'm not sure when it was, but I know it just sent chills up and down my spine. When I would hear that particular recording, and I don't even have a copy of it. But I know it was something that was like, man, this is the real deal, and that's the direct connection to the universe that Coltrane had. He was able to get to,
I was talking to my friend about this like recently, and me and him both love John Coltrane and McCoy Tyner, that whole band. But let's just talk about John Coltrane. I feel like is the John Coltrane is like the god of jazz.
yeah.
That's the way I see it. Oh, you're showing me the record.
Well, no, this is the original poster from Train's last gig that Rashid
Oh,
Rashid gave me this, and
that's amazing.
yeah, and I met Olatunji a couple times,
Yeah, for
and
those listening on audio, you got to tune into the video on YouTube to watch this because this is great.
yeah,
That's
this is
awesome, man.
the original flyer from Train's last
And he's
live.
playing flute on the picture.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's a
Wow.
recording of this too. I'm not too excited about the recording, but this is kind of cool that Rashid gave this to me.
Yeah,
But
you play with a part of history, man,
yeah, man, I'm lucky to play with Rashid because he was a beautiful person too. He was like the type of band leader. The stuff that he told me he learned from Train, he would like. I remember when we went to Europe, and it was so funny. It was like maybe the second time I went with him or something like that. And the lady who had got us the gig there, right? She was in New York at his house, and she was, an older lady, and she had hooked us up. So when we got to France, I think we got to Paris or something like that, and we went to this funny looking hotel, right? And he, me and it was I think Tyler didn't make it or something like that. So it was just me and Antoine Brony and Rashid, right? And then we used some yeah, some I think. Yeah, anyway, we had different bass players, but when me and Antoine's room was like, it was like the kids' room. She's like, okay, here's the kids' room. Like we're in our late 20s and stuff, or mid 20s and stuff. So, and then she put us in a room that's really tiny. We had to duck when we got in.
Oh
And then
my
Rashid
goodness.
said, Rashid opened the door to his room, and he went in the bathroom. And there were all these like female toiletries all around. And then he walked in the room, and then she was like butt naked and stuff like that. He was like, oh hell no. And he got out of there, and we all left and went to a different hotel. but so she didn't pay us. So there was some money, money issues, and I was like, come on, Rashied, you don't have to come out of your pocket. He was like, I actually went later and got some money from her. I met her, because it's like, you're supposed to pay us for these certain things or whatever. And he wasn't worried about that, but I went and got the money and gave it to Rashied. It wasn't a lot, a couple thousand or something, or less than 1,000 maybe. Um, but he was like, don't worry, he always paid the band, right? He took care of the band first, no matter what funny type of stuff happened. And he always treated the musicians like, and there were stories of Coltrane would do that too. He said 2 clubs in a row. He went with Train to play. I think it was at the Vanguard and then someplace in Philly, where Rashied was playing with Train, and he did the first set, and they started playing their thing, doing their thing, and which was more free, right? And then the club owner would come to them and say, "Hey, can you play some of this record? My favorite things, Giant Steps." And Train said, "We don't play that stuff today." And then they fired him. So he got fired from 2 clubs in a row. But Train said, "Hey, you guys are getting paid what I said I was going to pay you
Well,
anyway."
I think that's the, if as a band leader, you got to be ready that if the shit hits the fan, like you got to be ready to pay the band out of pocket.
And
At least
Rashied
that's the way I feel.
Rashied said he was feeling a little insecure because he got fired from 2 clubs in a row. He thought it was because of him.
Oh yeah, yeah. But you know what I mean though? Like I mean, like if something like if something, I mean, there's extenuating circumstances, but
Surprised how many band leaders don't adhere to that standard. Some band leaders are like, well, I didn't get paid, so you guys are gonna have to wait. And then weeks later, it's like, come on. No, if you pay the band right away if you can.
yeah, like there was one gig I was supposed to go up to like do in Connecticut, and the like in order for me to go do this gig, like I had to go get a hotel and stuff, and but then they were being really bogus about the cancellation because of weather, and they wanted to let me know like the day of, and I just was like, no, I can't, like I'm gonna be coming up there, like, and I just said, what, just cancel the gig, because it's like it's either it's not going to make sense if I go up there and it's canceled. I'm going to lose money. So I'm like, you know what? Let me just pay the musicians out of pocket and cancel it myself. So, and I was less stressed out for doing that than I would have been having the other situation of going up there and waiting and then having to leave. So,
Yeah, if you wrap your head around that concept, it's like, that then it's a lot easier, right? And you just realize, hey, hopefully, I got to have the money for the band no matter what.
yeah,
You know?
yeah, no matter what. So, but it is hard because, it is hard to make a living, you know,
Yeah,
purely just playing jazz music. It's hard.
yeah, it is. It is.
It is. Are as far as performing for what's going on in 2025 for you, what have there been some exciting stuff that's gone on in January, February, March? Have you had some good gigs that you could tell us about?
Yeah, I had this band called the Fusicians in New Orleans, and I was playing a lot of fusion stuff. And I decided to kind of reinvent that in a sense. So I played some fusion music on my new album, and which is coming out in a couple months, called Snap Happy. So I did some quartet stuff, right? Piano, bass, drums, and guitar, and we did a Return to Forever cover, George Duke cover, and original. So we did like with Mark Whitfield and my regular bass player Abasi Akoto, regular drummer Steve Johns. We did like a fusion gig and at Brothers Smokehouse. So that was kind of fun, and I've done a lot of other cool stuff. But yeah, I mean, over the past few months, I've done some good gigs, but I have some really good gigs coming up. I did a recording.
What's coming up?
I have a tour, a Polish tour that we're doing 5 cities with a trumpet player. We did a recording over the summer with a guy named Piotr Votasik and my friend Joris Tepe, bass player. He he um, he he threw my name in the hat, and the guy chose me I had never met him before. But we did a nice recording, so we have 5 concerts in Poland, and after that, I have 5 concerts, mostly clubs, with my own band in Ireland and London and Paris. So I have some pretty cool stuff coming up next month in the beginning of May.
So you have to
And
kind of go overseas to make to make
well,
money. Some sounds
I
like
haven't
some.
been lucky to be able to do that a lot, but I do it every once in a while, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's awesome. I haven't been to Europe to play. I mean, I've been like domestically places to play that are in the middle of nowhere, but I've never been overseas to play. Actually, no, one time Costa Rica. So
Hopefully you get a chance to do that because it's fun. It takes a lot to organize stuff, you know. Actually, my friend who got me over there on my own with my own group, you know, with some local cats in Ireland. It's his birthday today, St. Patrick's Day, and so I played in the middle of Northern Ireland, and then I've been able to get some. So it's kind of cool to play. Just to get started on that whole thing and try to figure out how to get some gigs, and I was able to get anyway, so yeah, so I'm working on trying to get more work and
do you want to
trying to.
do more stuff as a sideman or, more as a
I
band
like.
leader?
I mean, both is good. You know, you have to do both to survive, obviously. Um, I mean, yeah, unless you're a superstar and you can just do your own thing, you know. And there's only it's only a handful, couple dozen, I would say, of people that can do that and just do their own thing in jazz, you know.
What kind of sideman gigs would you like to do more of? You think like in terms of instrumentation or where you're playing, like what would you like to do more of as a sideman?
Well, well, I'm on Steve Johns' new recording, so we have some gigs coming up. We've done a couple gigs, but that's kind of cool. Where there's it's actually just a big rhythm section with vibes and guitar and piano, bass, and drums. So
Nice.
the recording that's getting some airplay with, and then the
He's coming on my podcast actually, Steve.
oh, cool. Yeah. So we have a couple gigs coming up here, local gigs, and then the guy that I recorded with Alvester Garnett was on the original recording, and this guy Mark Shim, but Tommy Campbell's going to go to Europe with us, and so that's going to be cool. So I like that band. That band has some really cool music. So it's trumpet, sax, piano, bass, and drums. So I like that type of sideman stuff.
Yeah.
You know, that's the stuff I really liked with Rashied's band when we had when we had two horn players and sometimes we had three horn players. We
Was
just
the were you were the was the last band with Lawrence Clark and Josh Evans?
yeah, yeah, and that was really fun, you know, because we got some good gigs and we could stretch out and it was nice being where I wasn't, you know, it was nice being in the middle, you know, as a piano player. You know, I'm smack dab in the middle with the bass and drums and the horn players, right? So I can lay out, you know, I can I can interact, you know. And with Rashied, it was so um, he rarely told us how to play, you know, or what to do, you know. It was depending on the person's compositions, and the compositions came from people all over the band, or like, or people outside the band.
Yeah.
But
Now, you've been very lucky, man, to do that and to do what you're doing now. I mean, it's a very fortunate position.
yeah, and I think my instrument kind of lent, you know, the fact that I'm a piano player that helps because I can do solo gigs, I can do trio gigs, I can do. I'm in the middle, right? So and you're a guitar player, right?
Guitar, yeah.
Yeah. So you're that way too. I mean, your instrument you can be in the middle too. You know?
Yeah.
So but it's yeah, it's I have to say I'm really fortunate because you know not only you know could I have died doing a lot of the stuff that I did or been locked up for a long time doing some of the dumb shit that I did, you know. So I'm lucky to even to have a chance. So there's something. Um,
Well, I'm lucky, I was a guitar player because some people come on my podcast and they're like, "What do you play?" And I'm like, "Come on, man,"
do your homework.
So, no, but no, go on. What were you saying?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, you have to I have to consider myself lucky in a sense, you know, or because there's a lot of people that do what I do and could do it a lot better, and they're you know and or do it differently or whatever. So and a lot of people that you know it's I don't know I don't really know what to say. I'm very fortunate. Sometimes things work out, you know, and sometimes things are fucking hard, you know, too, because, you know, my wife that's our wedding picture, right? She passed away almost 18 months ago.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
I met her. We were together for like 14 years or something like that. And, you know, it was, I was really lucky to be with her, and now that she's gone, I don't feel so lucky, so it's really tough because we had a great relationship. We were really comfortable, and she would travel with me sometimes, and I would travel with her. But yeah,
You were
so
together for 18 years?
more like we got married in 2012, and we met in like 2009, the end of 2009. So
Yeah.
yeah, she passed away.
Yeah, but you're right. Life is hard, man. Like life is waiting to kick us in the face every day. And it's unfortunately.
What I realized, so many people go, it's hard when it happens to you and us, right? To the person. But but so many people have gone through similar stuff. So it's like, that's why I'm grateful that I'm in recovery too, right? Because I get to go to meetings and talk about stuff. It's like, free therapy, right? For people that are in like, the recovery, like NA and AA and stuff like that, we get to go to meetings, we get to talk to people because of the pandemic. So much stuff is online now that we can go to in person. So it's like, and then there's other support groups too, right? There's other support from, bereavement organizations and hospices, and so anyway, therapists. I'm looking forward to talking to a therapist. I've never had a personal therapist, but
Wait,
but you know,
you're saying you're looking forward to that?
looking forward to that. Yeah, I'm trying to set something up through my insurance, just like I'm trying to set up a root canal through my insurance.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
always
the thing about therapy now is that it's very accessible. Um, like put it this way, like I got hit by a car like 2 years ago and I was all fucked up for like, you know, just like not operating at my normal frequency, you know, and like I just went on BetterHelp, which is an online platform and very much affordable, like to the average person out there. I don't want to say average person sounding like, oh, like, but it was affordable. You weren't paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a session. You were able to have sessions for maybe like, I can't remember, maybe like 75 to $90, but you could also go to these free workshops.
now, was this physical therapy for
No,
physical?
it's online, but you can do it on you can do it on phone or text therapy or video therapy. So I would just do video. So yeah, I had a couple sessions where I just like needed to talk to somebody about what had happened. And and a big part of it was actually like not through the speaking to the person, but like he was like, you should go to these workshops where they talk about dealing with trauma because the workshops were the most helpful, but those are all free. Then they were live too, and you could ask questions in them. So it was very, very good.
Yeah,
So
free therapy is the best.
free. Yeah. I mean, I'm an advocate for therapy in general.
It's about talking to somebody who's gone through it. It could be your friend. It could be somebody you met. It could be somebody on the street. Talking to somebody that went through the same stuff. And, hey, what did you do? How did you get through? The loss of your wife. How did you get through being around people who use drugs and know that's going to get you in a lot of trouble if you use drugs.
Yeah.
Friends across the room. So yeah, all that stuff. How did you get through it? Maybe I can get through it too. That type of stuff.
Yeah. I think we can all, if we all have someone who's been through it that we can relate to or has been through something similar, then that's
Yeah.
half the battle of recovering it.
Yeah. And it's the same thing, finding good teachers, finding good mentors, good friends, people you can talk to. They don't necessarily have to be maestros like Ron Carter or George Coleman, which I'm happy to call friends and master teachers too, who I've studied with and can talk to.
Yeah.
But it's good to reach out and find your people. Find your people that you can talk to. Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes your help sometimes comes from unexpected places.
Yeah. Well, no, this has been such, Greg, thanks so much for talking with me today. And thanks for your honesty and, being so open to sharing the stories with the audience. I'm sure a lot of people are going to hear it and definitely gain a lot of insight. So thanks so much.
Thanks, Abe. Thanks for having me, man.